Hey guys, and welcome to Diabetic 365, and today's educational video is about insulin resistance. We have our diabetes educator Toby here, and also she has been type 1 diabetic from 40 years. So she's going to share all the questions that we have regarding insulin resistance today. So Toby, tell us, what is insulin resistance?
Well, it's a condition when muscles, fat, and liver cells do not respond properly to insulin. So, there's actually a resistance of the insulin working.
Mm-hmm. So, basically, what causes this insulin resistance? Is it in type 1s, or is it in type 2s, or is it this is something common in both type 1s and type 2s?
We really don't know what causes it, but we do have some indicators. One thing is the abdominal fat. So, and it tends to happen more so in type 2 and pre-diabetes, and not so much as in type 1. Because in type 1, it's more the absence of insulin, so that there's not insulin in the system resisting because there is no insulin around. So it mostly happens in pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And like I said, abdominal fat seems to be one of the areas that is an indicator. It's not overall fat, but specifically the abdominal fat. And there's a little test that people could take with that right at home if you have a tape measure. And you've heard of waist circumference. There's a little test. So if you take a tape measure, put it around your belly, and the area is around your belly button. You want to put, and so it's not the size of your pants, guys. A lot of times guys will say, well, I wear a size such and such, but also where do they wear their pants is not right around their belly button.
Exactly.
So you have to use a tape measure, and for men, it's 40 inches. Is the top level, and for women it's 35 inches for waist surface.
So does this depend on the height also? If you're 6 feet, then it's okay to go 38, 39, but if you're 5 feet, you have to be under 32, 33, something like that?
No, this one doesn't take into consideration any height. It's simply your waist.
It's simply your waist. Okay. So tell us, how common is this insulin resistance if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic?
Yeah, it's very common for this to be happening. That's usually what's going on, is that there's resistance, that there's insulin in the system, but it's not being able to respond and work well. And as far as how common, I'd say the numbers are pretty high, with our increasing rates of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes right now.
So is there any other test other than that? Is there any way to tell if I'm insulin resistant or not?
Yeah, it would be getting a blood test to see if you have an impaired fasting glucose, or so it's a blood test is what you wanted to take to see where your numbers are.
Oh, okay. So, what is the point at which? Yeah. What is the range that I can say that I'm insulin resistant?
Yeah, 100 to 125, and if your number comes out to be 126 or above, then that's diabetes.
Okay. The next question is, what problems does insulin resistance cause?
Well, one of the problems is that if you haven't been diagnosed with diabetes, often it leads to type 2 diabetes. So insulin resistance usually is in the pre-diabetes stage, and then continues with type 2 diabetes. But that's probably the most initial cause, is that it will precipitate to type 2 diabetes.
Oh, okay. So, is there any kind of complications that come with insulin resistance, and if there are any steps needed to control it, what are these? What are those?
Well, very similar to managing diabetes, because if you're insulin resistant, then you're not using, your blood sugar levels are going to be at higher levels, hyperglycemia. So it's the same types of issues that we have with diabetes of having higher blood sugars. So it's a whole list, I think, of dominoes falling down. You know, if you're not managing your blood sugars well, then there's complications, you know, with heart disease and kidney disease and vision problems and so on. So it's all, and you want to keep blood sugars at as close to normal range as possible. And if you have insulin resistance, a lot of times it's hard.
Okay. So is there any way of me controlling getting this insulin resistance under control by making some nice changes to my food habits?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all based on lifestyle habits. So two things. One is healthy eating to control your weight, because weight is a big precursor, it's an indicator for building up insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So managing your weight, eating a healthy diet, and also exercise too. And there's something specific I wanted to say about diet too, because this just came out at the AADE conference, specifically about saturated fat and excess calories. Those were the two key points of diet that tended to affect insulin resistance.
Uh-huh. So also you said that exercise is always good, but someone with insulin resistance should, I think, at least exercise for 30 minutes or so. So,
right.
Tell us what are some of the benefits that we get about exercise in insulin resistance.
Yeah, it helps that your muscles to use the glucose better, get it into the cells instead of the glucose going around in your system. So that's the key, one of the key factors. And there's absolutely tons of research showing that benefit of exercising so that you can use the glucose better. There's a whole long list of other benefits that you achieve from exercise. One is weight, being able to manage your weight better or lose weight. And then there's also benefits of lowering blood pressure and heart disease. You know, the list goes on and on. It also makes you feel good too.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being on the show and educating us on insulin resistance. And thank you so much. You have a nice day.
You too.